Hey everybody, and welcome back. I'm going to walk you through a couple of my thoughts while I was designing my own handbrake. I think like a lot of these projects started out, I wanted to design my own and make my own because I thought it'd be cheaper. We'll find out here throughout the rest of this series that not totally the case. But the cool part about this is I was able to customize this to how I want. So initially started out with a vertical style, pull back handbrake. Looking at my car and how I wanted to run everything, it wasn't the most ideal. So I opted for the pull up style. After taking off the factory handbrake, I realized there was an opportunity to use the bolt holes that were there holding it together. So this is what I have designed here. I have a couple different handle shapes we'll look at here in just a second, but in short, I was able to download a SolidWorks file for a Willwood master cylinder. So this is the standard compact series master cylinder as you'd get in almost any of these aftermarket handbrakes. So McMaster car supplied the SolidWorks file for the clevis, which is the same one that I ended up purchasing. I am going to run it's essentially a skateboard bearing in here. So it's all pretty easy to find all those things, then just standard bolts and hardware. Obviously, two bolts holding the master cylinder to the frame. Uh, this was designed, like I was saying, to use the factory location bolt holes. So that'll be pretty cool. And I'll show you what that looks like when we get it in the car here. But in short, I built this with the sheet metal functions within SolidWorks work really well. So I'm going to have these laser cut out as just sheet metal plates. Then with the tabs and slots, they'll be able to be self-fixturing. So all I have to do is just kind of put the puzzle pieces together and then weld it whole and bolt everything else together. So like I was saying, I got a couple different handle designs. So this is the one that was my original thought. I'll put them both together on here. Maybe that'll make more sense. Oop, or none of them at all. Okay, so here's the two of them here, the two that I'm debating between, and I have them both. We'll go on to the next step here about how I went through the prototyping phase and style and all that stuff. But in general, these are the two shapes I'm looking at. It all depends on how I like it in the car, which one I like better in the car. But one of the things that I kept in mind while designing this, and let me know if you see anything else that's not right or something is, wrong with my logic here. But the thought was that these two pivot points, this is where the bearing is that mounts in the frame, and then obviously on the handle, are going to travel not in a linear path, but in a circular path. So what I was trying to do was put these 2 points at a place to where the vertical travel, up and down was minimal. So as you can see here, so this would be about where the neutral position would be. And then I marked these back. So this master cylinder was supposed to have a 1.4, roughly maximum 1.4 inch maximum travel. So what I was then able to do was set these back here at 1.4 inches, which as you can see on the handle is pretty significant. I don't know that it'll actually be running 1.4 inch travel with this master cylinder, but the one thing that was to notice was the difference between as you can see, the clevis then starts out flush with the master cylinder, like the jam nut there. And then as it goes through its path, comes up, and then settles its way back down. So this only actually works out to be, it looks fairly extreme on here, but this really only works out to be about a 50,000, 60,000 vertical travel here. So I believe this should be okay. This is the first one I put together, so I'm not totally sure. So we'll figure it out when we actually get the master cylinder and get it all in the car. So the next steps for this were to 3D print these pieces. I have just a more of a budget FDM style 3D printer. So I printed these out of PLA just for fit up. And I don't know if you can see at the top, this one's Rev 5. There was quite a few more than that. So This is the cool part about the printer is I'm able to design something, print it out, test fit it, see what I like, what I don't like, make small adjustments. Let's just say one of them here that is the easiest to say. As you can see this, so look at it from the back here, master cylinder on the back, and this is the back plate. This started out centered in this back plate, and that was one thing that aesthetically holding the handbrake on a table or in your hand separate made a lot of sense. But when I put it in the car, it did not. So I wanted to shift it over a little bit so that I can still use the factory trim. And this puts the handbrake handle sticking right out of the factory, parking brake location. So this is really cool as far as aesthetics in that sense, trying to keep some of those things together. So yeah, a little bit of what I've been working on here, and we'll move out to the bench and I'll show you the 3D printed parts and some of my thought process going forward.
So here we have the 3D printed frame. This is what I put together for the test fits. What we can see is the master cylinder. None of the stuff is actually bolted together right now, but just as the concept. This was the Willwood master cylinder. Like I said before, a model that I had downloaded and was able to print. So then everything fit up here. It's a little dark. I made some marks where I was about to make some modifications, but I was able to work around it and didn't actually have to make any cuts out of there. So what I was able to do with this then is to see the full travel. So this got a little weird right here, but that's about where this arm would sit. And part of this as well was trying to figure out where different arms would be. So see, this one's just a little bit, let's just say taller up here on the handle end, but just enough to see where the travel is, how it sits in the car, how it's going to bolt into the car. So this also has the 2 bolts on the bottom here that will fit into the factory handbrake mount. So yeah, as of today, the actual master cylinder showed up, the one I'll be using. So I can throw the part number on the screen, but it's 5/8 bore inline master cylinder is the plan for here. This is kind of just a standard 5/16 24 clevis, and this is the same that I had modeled here. So what I had done, and I don't know if you can hear the printer in the background yet, but I'd made some modifications already. So the one thing I noticed was this outside diameter was a little smaller than what the model was. So I had modified that a little bit, and as you can see here, it just fits a little, say, loose in there. Everything else seemed to be about the same. So then what I'm going to end up doing with this one is putting this together. Doesn't quite fit through the 3D printed part, but as you can see, I was able to thread this in a little bit further than I thought I was going to be able to. So that was actually kind of a bonus. So in that sense, I was able to shorten the whole framework of this. If you can hear the printers running in the back, like I said, these are a couple of the changes I was looking at. So I was able to take this pivot point and actually move it closer to the back, which should then lower this down. And if I put the other one back on, I mean, we saw it in the model as to why I did it that way, but we can see it in the physical test as well. So like I said, this just being mock-up, it's not totally perfect, but it actually worked out pretty well. So as we can see, like as the handbrake moves, there isn't much actual vertical play. It's not like it's going up and around the stroke there as it's moving. So I do have, this is a new handle I've printed. I haven't seen how this fits in the car. I had seen this one, chest fit this one. It was okay, but I think it could be a little bit better. So what we'll do is run out to the car and see how all this fits and how it sits in the car and figure out which one I like. And then we'll probably go ahead and place the order for the laser cut parts. Like I said, this is going to be steel parts. Steel panels that'll be jigsaw puzzled together in a sense, welded, and then this is going to be cut out of solid aluminum. So that's the plan for the materials. and then we'll take it to the next step. So stay tuned. Okay, so we'll start out here right in the car. As you can see, this is where the factory location for the handbrake would have been. My center console, dash, a little weird, got some tablet stuff going on here. We might talk about that in the future. Custom switch panel, so I'm running a Terminator X, and inside here I'm going to have my display with the USB port showing right up on the front here. Turn signals, high beams, and then fuel level is the plan here, but can talk about that a different day. Here, so we're looking at the factory location. As you can see, the spot that was white is kind of where we're at. So let me get this, the 3D printed one in here. It's a little tough to see, but that's about where she's gonna sit. So as far as being, you know, parallel to everything else there, shouldn't interfere with the shifter, should be able to get into reverse just fine. I'm a little concerned about that too, so I got this aftermarket. Well, obviously it's an aftermarket shifter, but then I just picked up a new shift lever. The one thing I noticed being strapped into the car with the harnesses, it was tough to reach the lever from where it was. But so the only modification I had to do from the factory location, the factory spot, made a little notch in the plastic here. Not that big of a deal. So get one of the bolt holes to fix it. And then the other thing was just pounding this down. So this was a little bit of a protrusion. Bashed it with the hammer a couple times, and now it's all flat and parallel. So I'll throw you up on the tripod, and then we will see what the handle looks like, handle placement. So hold on a second. All right, so I'll take this and I'll just hold it roughly in place. Don't need to actually bolt it in, because all I'm trying to get is a feel for where the handle's gonna sit here. But from before, this is about where I had this thing set. So I can already tell I like this handle placement better. We'd have, so up to full extensions, probably about there, maximum there. Gonna be a little tricky being on the other side of the shifter, but probably not that big of a deal. I'll throw this other handle on quick just to give you an idea of what it all looked like with the other one. Okay, so here's the other one, about in that same position. As you can see, it just sits a little higher up, and that, I guess the fact that it's higher up is probably easier to grab, but I'm just worried about having to get it that much higher before it fully locks. So belted into the seat, that's a little bit far of a stretch there, but so yeah, most likely gonna go with this one, which, well, a little further back. We can set them next to each other, but that's about how far different they are. So yeah, stick around for the next bit. Hopefully the next time we get to see this handbrake, it's all welded up with steel parts and I'm plumbing the whole thing together. So stay tuned.